It's a late everything. It's definitely late. I mean, that's why we call the club random, because it's definitely random. And everything here is like something that didn't fit anywhere in my real house.
I gather you decorated yourself.
Decorating is a strong word for what is going on.
Oh, you threw it together?
Well, threw it is much more close to the truth. Like, it was literally thrown in here. But it definitely does not have what you would call a woman's touch. Right. You could see a woman would say, let's pull this together. Whereas this is all coming apart.
I'm telling you, if there, I know you're a famous non-believer, but assume that there is a heaven. And the definition of heaven is you get assigned to do what you want. When Mary gets to the pearly gates, they're going to say, all right, we got some furniture to rearrange here. And for all of eternity, all you're going to do is move furniture. And let me tell you something, should be in heaven. Again, every time I turn around, I have my chair, you know, where I watch television, and then all of a sudden it's moved.
But I get the feeling that you became a much happier person when you got married.
You know, Bill,
I feel like you're the guy who, you might bitch about it and complain about it, but I mean, obviously you have one of the most famous marriages, and certainly one of the most famous cross the political divide marriages, but it's lasted a very long time.
Yeah, so I'm a statistical freak. I got married when I was 49. I've only been married once.
Great.
That you know, some people get married 49, but it's very, and I really come from a big family, and you know, but yeah, I'm proud. I mean, it's been 30. We got married. It'll be 30 years Thanksgiving.
I can't even. Yeah, Thanksgiving.
And people were saying it was a, you know, fake marriage. It was.
They said that about the Clintons, and I always said, it's not a fake marriage. It's a very real marriage. It's just one. I mean, I think she was the one who said he's a hard dog to keep on the porch. Right? Okay.
And no one that
so that's who.
Never thought it was a fake marriage.
Lots of people say it's an arrangement. And I always said, it's not an arrangement, and he really does love her. He just also loves Strange. Or did, you know, he's an older man now.
Yeah, I don't, but what I do know is that to people, I know people that said it was an arranged marriage, okay? I don't know anyone that really knows them that would say that. Exactly. I think somebody from the distance would say that.
No, I thought I mean, obviously partisans are going to be partisans, and they're going to hate when somebody does anything on the other team if they're that kind of person. But unless you're that kind of super partisan, you couldn't watch him at, her 2016 convention. When he gave her the speech, I met a girl at Yale. Right. Remember that? Right. You know, he went into that thing about, like, I've never seen her go into a situation and didn't make it better, you know. You just got the feeling that this is somebody, and I remember when they were going through their shit and they asked her what she was going to do, and she said something like, you know, yeah, I thought about leaving, but he's, at the end of the day, the most interesting person I've ever met. And the idea of, like, not having that in my life was just not, you know, tenable. And people like the Clintons, I feel like you saw that part of it. I mean, it was romantic in its way. He's the most interesting man I could ever talk to. How many people can you say that about?
Well, because he is.
Because what?
Because he is. I mean, he's the most interesting person. I have a smart.
He is?
He's a stunningly interesting man. He's
but kind of an egomaniac, no?
Everyone that you and I know at some level is an egomaniac. Who would get into politics?
Yeah,
that's not.
I guess it's levels of it. I don't know him like you know.
So one time, I worked a lot overseas, and I was in Oregon, Argentina, and the then finance minister, a man by the name of Domingo Carvile, we were having a drink at the Sheraton Hotel, Puerto Madero or something. The guy comes by and he says, Senor Rodriguez. Carvalho says, this is James Carville, the man that elected Bill Clinton. And he said, I'll tell you a story. He said, about a couple, 3 years ago, the OAS had a meeting here. And the Sheraton and President Clinton came, and of course I was the manager and greeted him, but, you know, he would do. He said a couple of years later, Sheraton people called me. They wanted to go to Santiago because they were having a thing, and President Clinton would be standing for Sheraton in Santiago. So I was there, and they asked me to come out and greet the president. And the president, he looks at him and he says, I thought you were in Buenos Aires. Did you get transferred? These kind of stories are,
right.
You hear them all the time.
I have heard them. About his memory?
Right.
And just his total recall of every detail of every person, and the way he would always stay to the last person in the room, wanted to talk to him about something. I mean, yeah.
Could never get it. Wouldn't want to leave. He genuinely.
So who has that kind of political talent now?
Nobody.
No.
Okay. I mean.
Nobody? No.
Well,
that's
there's some
not him.
people, the most talented group of politicians I've ever seen in my life in any political party are currently in the Democratic Party.
You just said the opposite. But none of them are as good as Clinton.
Well, right now, because we don't know, because they're not they're in the board.
So who is this dream team that has?
I think that Josh Shapiro is about as talented a politician I've seen.
Okay, he's Pennsylvania?
Right.
Governor?
He's the governor. He's
okay. I cannot picture him, but that doesn't mean anything because...
Yeah, it doesn't mean anything. I'm just telling you. You hadn't seen him because Wes Moore, who I did, Wes and I did real time with you during the pandemic, and the whole fucking thing went down.
Governor of Maryland?
Governor of Maryland.
African-American governor of Maryland.
The governor of Kentucky could be Clinton-esque talent.
Oh, what's his name again?
Andy Beshear.
Andy Beshear, right. Kentucky, see? The Democrats need a little Kentucky again.
Well, I think we got the election coming up.
I mean, they should remember that the person who, elected Clinton, who had an accent, was you, who has such an accent that, when they do the chyrons, there's a machine that puts the words under podcasts and television shows, they can't do you. Because they don't know what the fuck you're saying. So it comes out gibberish. But you talk and think like America. That's what the Democrats need.
They do. There is this image that, so if you get a couple of voters from wherever, and you ask them, when you think of the Democratic Party, what do you think? Inevitably, they're urban. They kind of look out after the cities, and they
right.
Right?
Right.
Could you imagine what would happen if we put 5 people on the stage that had like string a sentence together and had original thoughts and energy, but
original thoughts in
all
politics?
Different.
Let's not go crazy.
But there's so fucking much talent out there at every level.
Talent. So what is political talent? So you're saying these guys are talented, Beshear, and any women in this group?
Whitmer,
right.
Gina Ramalto.
Gina Ramalto
is really
the...
talented. It was the former governor of Rhode Island. She's now the Secretary of Commerce.
Is Rhode Island a state? Really? Come on.
I don't know, but they think they are. I have a lot of friends with that.
Wouldn't it be great if we could, snap our fingers and actually have another constitutional convention where you didn't have to... because nothing will ever change in this impacted colon of a country, because you could never convince enough people who all hate each other now to get behind sensible things. But if you could just be the king in a constitutional convention, some of the things, I would definitely get rid of every state gets 2 senators no matter how many people, so that California gets 2 with 40 million people, and the Dakota Territory gets 4. That would go, but you could never get people to agree.
But actually, it's a big thing on the right to have a new constitutional convention. I want to say
really?
19 or yes, they've had states.
What do they want to get rid of? It's
the
all
14th Amendment. They hate the 14th Amendment.
Really?
Oh God.
But most of the Constitution's fucked up shit is in their favor. The Second Amendment and the 2 senator bullshit.
They hate the Reconstruction Amendment. They particularly, the 14th Amendment is equal process,
Right.
equal protection
And
law.
is that because, I mean, they can't, they're not against black basic civil rights, are they?
Really?
Are they?
Well, with
Basic
such a
civil-
civil right that your vote counts, and they gerrymander these fucking districts, and like,
Yeah, but they would, of course, I understand what you're saying, and of course they do that, but are they doing it because minorities don't vote for them? In other words, if minorities voted for them, I don't think it's a race thing. Some of it is, but it's more of a, if you don't vote for us thing, then we're going to try to make it that you can't vote. I think they'd be happy they'd be happy to take...
They said in Wisconsin, some Republicans said, these college kids just roll out of bed and go vote. Well, what the fuck are you supposed to do? All my life, I've rolled out of bed and I'm going to vote. What's wrong with that?
Yeah.
The kids in Madison
Right.
are not voting for Republicans, so they don't want college kids to vote. It literally said they just roll out of bed and go vote. Everybody that votes rolls out of bed and goes to vote.
Absolutely. That's so silly. As if you needed like a month to think about it when you already knew who you were going to vote for 2 years before. But somebody in the race currently wants to raise the voting age to 25. Might be Vivek.
He was like everything that he had a Harvard degree.
Right.
He was a tech bro.
Yeah.
It was totally fucking crazy. And so they're all right. And he said, look, I'll get in, I'll fix Ukraine. We'll just give Russia whatever they got. Ukraine will keep what they got. And then we'll say, Russia, you can't have a military alliance with China.
No,
Great.
I mean, Vivek sat right there and we chopped it up for quite a while. And, I said to him, I find you both disarming and very alarming because he is unabashed. He insists that he is not running to be Trump's vice president. No, he would never accept that. He's been the CEO of a company, and I like the guy. But, and he could never go back. He'd go from CEO to vice president of the world. Yeah, I think you could. Anyway, so he, to me, looks like he's running to be Trump's vice president because or if Trump, somehow can't run or, has a heart attack or something, he is positioned as the Trump...
They're never...
But
they
even...
hate Ron DeSantis.
Who does?
The MAGA base, because DeSantis has done the unforgivable thing. Rob Zawinul is at least smart. If something happens to Trump...
Right.
The MAGA will, he never attacked it. There's no chance they're going to vote for Mike Pence. No.
Of course not. Well, that was never in the cards.
No.
Well, I mean, you talk about political talent, or just, I always say he looked like the pilot in the film that they show before the plane takes off, who goes over the safety shit. And, oh my God, you have to have a little pizzazz, right? But you're saying it's because it's all about loyalty to the cult leader.
The whole thing.
Yes, I agree.
So DeSantis thinks that he can go out in out right-wing Trump. That's not what motivates these people.
Well, that is kind of what Vivek is doing because, when he said, I want to get rid of 75% of the government, that's out-Trumping Trump. I mean, Trump
don't want to get rid of any of the government. He just wants to control it.
Yeah, of course. But but I'm saying, if you're going to be that kind of meat-throwing, fire-breathing, salivating, drooling Republican, Vivek is like, you might as well go all the way, because that is what, he won, didn't he win that debate?
When I look at a Republican debate, the way that I determine the winner is the one that irritated me the most. Because if you're fucking irritating me, you're winning that.
Right.
So I've scored in reverse order.
So who irritated you the most? That's such a hard one.
DeSantis decided him.
You know who irritated me the most? Borgham. Doug Borgham. Or as I call him, President Doug Borgham. Just I'm sure he's a sweet guy, but the ego of and what did his wife tell him after? You killed it. Totally nailed it. I think there's going to be a groundswell. It's just like, come on, man. And the other guy on the end, Hutchinson.
Oh, Asa? You would like, he's a perfectly
I
nice
know,
man.
but
For Bob's sake,
the only politician in America who looks older than Biden. He's going to be
yeah.
and he went into that thing about like,
the guy that don't give a shit is Chris Christie. He's just going to budget and Trump till he'll chase him around to whatever. He'll give a fuck.
let me ask you this. You know, it came up in conversation at dinner there with people, and we were saying that, you know, Chris Christie has been to 150 Bruce Springsteen shows. You know, a New Jersey thing.
Right.
It's like a Louisiana thing.
Right.
New Jersey. And Bruce Springsteen is awesome, you know.
And and Bruce Springsteen's a really good Democrat.
Well, that's the point.
So is Jimmy Buffett, by the way.
Yeah, I know Jimmy. I remember Jimmy.
Yeah, he's a good Democrat.
Almost everybody in show business is a Democrat.
Yeah, because they know.
Well, also, it's just like, you know, I'm an independent.
Okay.
I voted for every Democratic president, but I swear to God, every time I gave the Republican a chance. In other words, I looked at the choices. I didn't just automatically vote Democrat, but I legitimately thought, yes, Bill Clinton will be better as a president than George Bush or Bob Dole would. And then I looked at George Bush, and I looked at John Kerry and Al Gore, and legitimately said, no, these guys are going to be smarter and more compassionate and more effective. And I don't regret that. And then, you know, Obama with McCain and Romney, I looked at them. I don't hate either John McCain or Mitt Romney. There's things to admire about both of them. But I still thought, no, Obama. Maybe if it was them against some lesser Democrat along the way who I didn't like. But I just think that to me is how I do it. I know that's not where you are.
Yeah, I mean, look, when I was a kid, the only people that wanted to help black people were the National Democrats. And I grew up in very...
When you grew up, in another era, it was reversed.
Right.
It was the Democrats who were the problem for the
My great-grandfather, not great-great-great, my great-grandfather was immigrated from Ireland, Wisconsin. He was a soldier in the Union Army right at the end of the war. We cannot confirm if he ever saw any combat. He was a classic carpetbagger. He moved to Louisiana.
Right.
He ran and won in the state legislature. He was a Republican. He was actually like the full leader for Governor Pinchback, who was the first black governor. Remember Doug Wilder was the first elected black governor.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
And
what is his name? Pinchback?
Governor Pinchback was a governor of...
Sounds like a sketch on the old Steve Allen show. Governor Pinchback and
Remember that thing you
Senator
did?
Filibuster. I am Senator Filibuster.
One of the best real-time routines for a political consultant is the Melanie Stansbury and how they did these negative ads.
Oh, right. Oh, you remember that?
I watch that piece. Young Kim is in color. I can recite the entire fucking thing. It's one of my favorite things that you ever did.
That makes me feel so good. But let me ask you this Bruce Springsteen thing. Okay, so Chris Christie's been to 150 Bruce Springsteen concerts, obviously a big fan. And there was just an article, I guess, in the paper that said, finally, maybe Bruce is sort of stopping from just completely freezing him out. You know,
I saw that.
He wouldn't talk to him.
I saw that.
Just my point of view, but I feel like Bruce Springsteen shouldn't have done that. When Chris was on the show last time, I called him and we laughed about it. I said, you're what I call a as good as it gets Republican. And this country should get the fuck over itself and realize it's a big place with lots of people who don't think like you. And you can't hate everybody who's not just completely on your page. It's not going to get a lot better than Chris Christie as Republicans go, the things we don't like about Republicans. And to hate those kind of people where, no, I will not be your friend, I will not talk to you. Maybe it would get better by being friends with people like that.
Yeah, I've done events with him. He's come over. He's a personal. People don't. It's something people don't realize.
But he's not a monster who he could play one
Right.
in
But
like a movie, but
Connecticut does not have a culture. Okay, I'm sorry. New Jersey actually has a culture. Like Bruce Springsteen is too. I mean, he's like a cultural icon.
Yes.
They go to the shore. They don't go to Cape Cod. They don't go to Miami.
We went to the shore. This is my upbringing.
And they actually have a culture. They have iconic things.
Yes.
And
we say water, and for some reason they think that's pronouncing it wrong. I don't understand that.
I don't know either.
I just wish people could, get over themselves a little bit about like who they won't fucking mingle with. Mingle.
This is so
right?
right. It's so
Mingle.
But it's now become everything is a purity test. And I don't.
That's what I'm saying.
I don't like that.
I don't either.
I don't like it. And
I did an editorial once where you and Mary were in it and I quoted the thing about you getting married on Thanksgiving because it was one of these pleas I've done to like, look, the people who you don't completely agree with are not the enemy. You know, the three most important words in a relationship are not "I love you," they're "let it go." Right? Let it go. And I think, and it was a very sweet thing we said about you and Mary, and I think we quoted her as saying, yeah, our idea of fun isn't to argue about the earned income tax credit or something. Like, you just don't waste your time, right? You don't waste your time. Here's the key to a relationship. Kids, don't go there if you know that's not a place where if you do go, you're going to have a good time. Right? Isn't that a lot of it?
I stuck my finger in that socket. About the fifth time, I said, I'm just not going to stick my finger in it. I'm a slow learner.
Well,
right?
I would say at our age, the key, for me anyway, I'm not going to speak for you, but the key components that I really treasure are acceptance and comfort. Like when I was 21, I backpacked in Europe and stayed in hostels. I was okay at 21, I couldn't do it now. And acceptance, just like, accept. Yeah, we're not going to agree on everything. And it's okay. Everybody just has such a fucking bad attitude.
But, so many people think that they're defined by their politics.
Right.
And,
so true.
Politics is part of my definition. And look, if you're like a racist, we're not going to get along very well.
No.
And
of course.
If I see you, I'll tell you hello, but I really don't. I'm not interested in developing it. But if you think differently than I do, or you have a different view, of course, living where I live, I probably run into more in a social life as many Republicans as Democrats.
Of course.
If you live out here, you don't.
Right, because you're in the D.C. area.
Right.
Right. I mean, it's the town industry. It's like what show business here or Detroit with cars, right?
But a lot of these people get along better than you think, but they can't.
I saw that the first time I did something in Washington in 1995, Politically Incorrect.
Right.
Remember that show? I'd been on for 2 years.
Right.
And I was doing whatever that dinner is where the
White House correspondence.
I think maybe that was it. Anyway, I said under my breath at one point, I fucked up the joke and I went, oh, fuck it. And the next year, People magazine said, last year, Bill Maher delivered an obscenity-laced monologue. But anyway, I saw Newt Gingrich and Clinton backstage, and they were getting along fabulously. And that's when I knew, okay, this is a big show. I remember that so vividly, seeing them in the wings, talking, laughing. You could tell just by the eye contact, they didn't hate each other.
It's one of the things about Washington, it's a very prudish place.
Yes.
I mean, like, they believe that they're the upholders of some morality, sexual standard for the rest of the country, and they're full of shit. They're just like everybody else.
Worse.
I remember they had Imus when Clinton was president.
Yeah.
Like, well, if you fucking invite Imus, if you invite a snake, don't be surprised if it bites you. That's what the guy does. And it was all like a gas. And I went on some show and I said, everybody needs to calm down. If you don't get mad at him, get the people that invited him. If you invite Bill Maher,
well,
he's gonna bite you.
Yeah, I don't think I even bit anybody that day. I don't remember. I mean, it was so long ago, but.
When during the scandals, oh my God, people were like fainting in the street.
Well, I mean, the problem with a room like that for a comedian is that there's almost nothing that isn't somehow offensive to somebody. And if you try to rise above that to the degree of their sensitivity, what you'll be saying will be so bland. Which is why they really shouldn't ever hire a political comedian in that place anyway. Nobody ever succeeds, really, very few. Stephen Colbert did awesome, I have to say, with Bush. That was a brilliant moment. I got to give him that. But usually that is just, they should have a fucking juggler or a ventriloquist or something, because everybody can just enjoy together.
It's all about, so this is the way the White House correspondent said it was. So everybody, they want someone because they take their advertising.
Because they what?
They take their advertising. So the Washington Post has a tape.
Right.
And so they want to have somebody that
Sorry, Chiron operator.
Visa, like. It's the same thing with ABC. It became the first celebrity. Remember Fawn Hall?
Fawn Hall was whose?
It was right during the Reagan administration.
What was she? Her? She was somebody's mistress?
Yeah,
Fawn
something
Hall.
like, yeah.
I feel like
somebody bought her to the White House Correspondents' Guild.
Was it scandalous?
No, it started a trend where they would have Colbert, Imus, or Bill Maher.
But I feel like Fawn Hall. I'm sorry, Fawn, if this is a.
She had something to do with Ollie North.
Yeah. Maybe I'm just trying to make this hotter than it was, but I love that name. And somehow I feel like she was hot and was fucking somebody. But again, that just could be my mind going where it wants to go.
You and I have the same mind. Everybody's fucking somebody else.
She was selling missiles to Adnan Khashoggi. I mean, I don't know.
Right.
But it's amazing the mist of time, right? Like, there was a time when Fawn Hall, we both would have known exactly who that was.
Remember Donna Rice?
Now, Donna Rice, of course, was Gary Hart's mistress.
And the pimp was,
I don't know.
The pimp was a guy from Louisiana, Bill Broadhurst.
Pimp?
Well, he was the guy that brought them together on the boat with the famous picture.
I mean, he said she asked if she could sit on my lap or something, and I chose to be a gentleman. And but then when she started twerking, he started putting 20s in her G-string. I was like, come on. I mean, now we're going to get suspicious. But he was the one who famously said to the press, follow me.
Yeah.
Right. And, I mean, you could
Carl
not...
Taylor was the reporter.
First of all, you don't even have to invite the press these days to do that. But you couldn't even imagine baiting them like that. Because they were like, well, of course we're going to... We're following you already, you moron.
Paul Taylor was the reporter that broke that story to Washington Post.
Do you think they really were having an affair?
You know, I assume that everybody's fucking everybody else, and then if I'm wrong, I'm willing to revise my opinion, but I kind of go in.
Yeah, fucking unless proved otherwise.
Right. I just assume, and then somebody says, no, actually, no, okay. I mean, I don't care.
Yeah.
Follow me.
It's amazing the way the sex scandal, you know.
Well, Trump just blew past. He just the one thing that we'll have to say about him is he said, I could shoot someone on Fifth Avenue and my people wouldn't give a shit. He actually is an adjudicated rapist on Fifth Avenue. A court of competent jurisdiction, a judge said by any common definition of the word rape, you raped that woman.
This is the dressing room one?
Yeah.
Okay, I mean, that may have happened, but I mean,
But a jury in a court
Okay,
said it did.
That fucking means nothing to me because I know what they know, which is nothing. They know two people said two different things about something that happened in the 90s and of which there's no witnesses or tape.
Well, you know
so
what?
we can't, I can't, look, I hate Donald Trump as much as
I
anybody,
understand.
but I can't say for sure I just know that. Just because 9 people said they think that, I can't.
First of all,
But yes,
they had more in other
They
words,
did?
yes. So she told me
what was
this
the
happened.
evidence? What was the
that
evidence?
Other people that she told contemporaneous with it.
Well,
which
you
is
know, okay.
whatever. A jury said that,
Okay,
that he
you know
did.
what? You know more about this
But-
case than apparently I do, and maybe if I knew everything, I would be completely.
I know that a jury.
Yeah.
I tend to have more faith in most people. In juries, I think most of them really try to weigh what's there. And I do know that a jury, but now I'm going to get too technical here, but by a preponderance of the evidence,
Right.
it's a little bit of a different standard in a criminal case. It's beyond a reasonable
Yeah,
doubt.
I'm admitting I don't.
Right.
I didn't know that there was like evidence. I just thought
Right.
it was he
No.
said, she said. So, okay, so, but like the way he has been able to have the hush money, he got a porn star, a rape. I grab pussies, like when you're a celebrity, they let you do it. There is a genius to his madness, and the thing I always say about Trump that you have to remember, he's stupid and crazy, and they're two completely different things. And this is like the crazy part works for him because he's without a mechanism to edit or to pull back. So, you know, as my friend Jimmy always says, insanity photographs. You can't take your eyes off him. Obviously, whenever they put him on TV, the ratings go through the roof. And that's why. Insane people are charismatic. You can't look away. So when he does all this, I mean, not just sexual stuff, but certainly the sexual stuff, it's like, I'm going to own, no one else in the world would even think of this as a strategy. And he has no strategy. It's just what he feels. He's all in. But to own that, to own being this kind of guy, and half the country likes it. Or at least it's not a deal breaker because they feel like it's honest.
At least he's honest. He says what he thinks.
As a
Sorry.
horror-
Now,
yeah.
he doesn't have to.
Well,
What
when you like-
is he tells you it's okay if you hate other people. He validates what that guy says. I like because he says what I think.
Well, he plays on the fact that his people think that your people hate them and look down on them and see them as deplorables. I mean, I think they think...
Do you know? There's some truth to it.
Oh, there's a lot of truth to it.
And I'm as good a Democrat
Yes,
as
you
the
are.
next person. But you hear this shit, so I don't know if we ever talked about this before. But the best example I've ever seen was in early 2020, before the pandemic. LSU played Clemson in the Superdome in New Orleans for the national championship. A guy, Benjamin, the New York Times editorial writer, said that the Sanders-Warren student loan thing applied to real schools or schools like LSU that they called off classes the day after the national championship game. Like, okay, so it's 80 miles away. You got 20,000 drunk kids going to the football game, and the president of the university wisely says, we're not going to have class tomorrow. And, like, this is not a real school. Well, fuck you. There's real school like in any other place. The way that people look at, there is a certain coastal arrogance in this country, and people feel it. Right?
Yes.
They just do, and you can't tell me that it doesn't exist because I know that it does.
I feel it. I feel it all the time. Yes, there is. Yeah, it's a lot what we were just saying before about people have to be able to talk to each other, even if you don't completely agree. The other person is not a deplorable. I get it. Like I would never.
Some of them are.
Of course they are. Some of them are.
Yeah,
yes.
Yeah, okay, but
Yeah, that's true. And some people on the left are deplorable. I'm sorry.
I find the left to be just annoying.
Exactly.
They're more than just not important. They're just annoying.
Exactly.
And the Western far left is habitually the most stupid, naive people you can imagine. And they come up with these really goofy constructs, and it's all about feeling good about yourself.
Yeah, well,
And
just
they-
feeling, as opposed to like free speech. Like if your feelings are hurt, that's more important than free speech.
You know, I told my students, I said, the only reason that I have not invited David Duke to this class is I am a fucking moral column. I don't want the president of the university to crap a pineapple.
Oh my God.
I don't want to, well, I would have zero philosophical problem. And if I'm your teacher and this son of a bitch comes and changes your mind, then shame on me. I'm not worried about it. But I don't understand. I literally don't understand.
No, by the way, I think it would be quite interesting to see someone like you talk to him because, like, we don't really see in our normal lives, and this is a point of progress, racists. You know, people who are like very overtly racist.
Yeah.
What do they do? Where do you see them?
Well, you know, they'll come up. You can just tell. I mean, some people, yeah, that's racist.
What do they say?
Well, no one's going to like say it to me, but I know people. Come on, man, they're everywhere. You kidding me?
Well, they are definitely there. I don't know. I don't know if they're everywhere.
When somebody says, you know, I like what Trump says, I get it. Yeah, if somebody has a Confederate flag on the back of a fucking pickup truck,
a Confederate,
I know what you're saying.
Okay,
I see them all the time.
A Confederate flag, yes.
I see it all the time.
Okay, I like what Trump's saying. No, that's too big a stretch. There are plenty of people who like Trump who are not racists. You think
of course I'm not going to. You're not going to try to understand every person that likes Trump is a racist. But let me put it this way: not all Trump people are racist, but all racists are Trump people.
That's true.
Okay, so I'm going to be so stupid, but you have a certain level of comfort.
He's doing better with minorities.
Because if you're, think about it, so you're a black guy, you work at a tire repair shop in Gulfport, Mississippi.
Okay.
And, you know, you like to smoke weed, convince a woman, watch a football game, scratch your ass, and you got all these preachy people telling you what you should do, and people don't like preachy people. They don't want to be told that they're immoral, or, you know, the fact that you like to smoke dope and, you know, watch immoral football games.
Yeah,
and
there's definitely a feeling in the country that the Republicans are the daddy party and the Democrats are the mommy party. For some good reason, Democrats certainly are more the party of compassion, and that you very often associate more with your mother than your father, and fathers are the party of discipline. We did an editorial about this once. I think it was pretty funny about, like, the Republicans are really the deadbeat dad party because they're supposed to, like, they used to be like the ones who were like fiscally responsible in this household, we watch every penny, and that went out the window, and lots of other things where they kind of like.
Oh, the whole thing, there is nothing. So, you know, when I grew up, they were like square-jawed people. They wore suits. They showed up to meeting at time. They had briefcases.
Right.
You know, they talked about.
Yes, they were bankers, the party of business.
Right. Yes. Yeah.
Right.
And they were business-oriented.
Right.
They were some more patriotic.
Right.
There was the guy at the hardware store that coached the Little League team and, you know, gave money to the, you know, Christmas present drive before. If Trump just blew that whole thing up, it is not.
Right.
You think Trump is anti-abortion? Oh, come on, how many abortions do you think Trump has made?
Maureen Dowd once asked him about abortion in his life, and I think his answer was, what an interesting question. Like, what's your next question? He just,
Hey, I don't.
And again, he gets away because he's insane. I'm telling you, they talk about the narcissism like it's a personality quirk. It's not. He's a nut. He's a fucking nut. He really is a nut. The fact that he commits his crimes in public
and confesses
to them, and like, I got rid of the FBI director because there was a lot of pressure on me. Like, yes, that's your interior monologue. There's a lot of pressure on me because the FBI is looking into me for good reason. You don't. So I invited the Russians in. I mean, like, it's so beyond it. This is not.
The Russian ambassador showed him top secret shit. He was showing the guy at Bedminster, look at these.
But I mean, he does one a day, or he did when he was president. Like, something that only a nut would do. It's amazing to me that we lived through those 4 years, because when I look back on it, and of course the Trump people say, oh, you have Trump derangement syndrome, and yeah, he blew up the world, right, Bill? I don't, you're right, he didn't blow up the world. I still think he could, okay? Is that completely crazy that I think a crazy person could blow up the world? No.
The shit that he did, it's like stunning.
I'm saying, no.
The documents case, if you stop and you think about it, like, one time...
I could read 1,000 tweets that are just insane that just went by. I remember there was one that said he was mad at China, and he said, I hereby, he's the king, I hereby order all American companies to immediately, work on a plan to change he was like ordering them to get out of China. I hereby order. And again, that's just insane, that nobody else would even think to do that. But he doesn't think. That's his insanity and his attraction to people.
Let me ask you a question. Okay, history eventually finds out. They find this asshole Pius XII. They found the letter where they told him they were gassing.
The Pope during World War II?
Yeah. All right, we know from history he's been outed, I guess is what you would say.
Right.
Do you think, with all the history is known, would you guess that the Russians have compromised on Trump, or that's just liberal factors?
No, I have always said that the Russian hoax theory is a hoax. Plainly, there was something going on between Russia and Trump. It was not perhaps, first of all, I always thought Mueller blew it. He could have completely done it differently.
Totally.
They got a guy who was past his prime, and boy, he was too by the book, and history could have been very different. But okay, but yes, I mean,
but I would go if you gave me 3-to-1 odds in their records and not going to prove. I wouldn't be surprised there's a P-tape.
No,
I'm sure.
I don't think it's a. Well, I don't think there's a. Well, yeah, I
don't know
absolutely,
that. Right. But
it was. It's not great. No,
of course not.
But here's what we do know about Russia. It's like there's a few things we do know. I don't think it's a giant mystery. I think we know what it was. First of all, his campaign manager was sharing campaign information with a GRU agent. Okay, that's a real thing. That Kalimnik dude. Okay. That's a real thing. And he said what we heard him say publicly, Russia, if you're listening. No, Eisenhower didn't offer Brazil or some country to fuck with our election. Again, the insanity of doing it publicly. And it's like the guy who was fucking around, so he gets the center table at the hottest restaurant in town with the girl. If I was gonna fuck her, would I be here where everyone can see me? It's hiding in plain sight. And he does it. He gets away with it, and he's going to, I think he easily could be the president again.
But right now, let's assume the election was November the 3rd of this year. And they said the candidates are Joe Biden, the Democrat, Donald Trump, the Republican, Joe Manchin and Larry Hogan, no labels, and Cornel West. Trump would be a betting favorite.
Yes.
If I told you I would
Totally.
give you even money, you would not take that bet. All right? And so somebody better wake the fuck up.
I might take even money, but you're right. I'm totally on the same page. And I think I talked to Paul Begala today.
He told me, I saw him when I'm
I
building.
think we're on the same page with Biden. Did a great service, but whereas in 2020, maybe he was the only one who could have beaten Trump, I think now he's the only one who will lose to him. He did great, not just because he beat Trump, but a lot of stuff he did. Afghanistan, Ukraine, he handled right. Everybody else's economy was worse than ours after the pandemic. These are some pretty big things, but he will lose because at some point perception becomes reality. And look, do I think he can do the job? Absolutely. Government, as you well know better than anybody, is done in small rooms like the Oval Office where people are talking quietly and decisions are made. I think he still can do that fine. He cannot run for president. He'll look bad in the debates. It's too much. And he's I think going to lose. He will be Ruth Bader Biden, the Ruth Bader Ginsburg of the presidency. It's not a good look. And any 50-ish, not stupid, woke Democrat with a D by their name, people just vote D and R, that person can win.
It'd win easily.
Easily.
If we took if we had somebody under 60 and ran against Trump, we'd get 55%.
Right.
I mean, it'd be numbers. But, by the way, if you look at the, I don't like when people take one poll and extrapolate too much from it, but I've seen the last 8 polls are all the same. 73 to 77% of the country does not want Biden to run again. I'm going to just round that to 75.
Right.
Okay? That's a big fucking number, man.
That's a big number. It's a very big number for something this crucial. It's ridiculous.
So, if you look at the last poll I looked at, and a poll has a rhythm, so they said if it's Biden versus Trump, 47.5 to 47, the same thing, 47, 47, 48, 48, Biden versus DeSantis, 40, 48, 46, 47. Biden versus Nikki Haley, 49, 43. I have never seen an incumbent president at 43. Do people actually know Nikki Haley's position on anything? Nah,
no,
not
but
really. It's just a new name, and they might know that she's Trafalgar Mirror.
Right.
But you can just feel.
What do you think of Nikki Haley? Because, again, I feel like this is, I know they hate this term. I don't mean it to be insulting Republicans, but she's another as good as it gets Republican. It's not going to get better than these kinds of people. No. There is no imaginary Alan Alda from the West Wing Republican that exists. Am I right?
You're right, and the reason is that they have stupid voters.
They're
going to produce.
Yeah.
Look, remember Lester Maddox for the governor of Georgia, and he said the problem with Georgia prisons is the quality of the inmate. Right. we can't seem to get along the inmate.
See, this is why they hate you, because you just said stupid voters, and I like to channel everybody's side. When they hear that, stupid voters, they're like, yeah, okay, maybe we're stupid, but you think you're doing some stupid things in your own way, like pregnant men? Right? That's what they say. And right. I get it. I would never vote for Trump, but I get it. I get
this is my problem. You and I. The problem is of the Democratic Party, the percent of Democrats, and we know this over a huge number of polls. So about 10 or 11% of Democrats describe themselves as progressive liberal, whatever that means.
Is that right?
Okay. Yes. It's a very, and this is survey after survey. And these people are annoying, silly, but they come to you because you live here, you work in entertainment. The identity left is all around you.
Yes.
Most people don't even know what they're talking about.
I know.
By the way, the number of MAGA people is 65%. So we pay a greater price for 10% of our party than they pay for 65% of their party. And our people, the identity left are silly. They're not evil. They're just goofy. They have the original word woke, and I did some research on this. The first time that people think it came up was a black jazz musician who was born around Shreveport, died in a jail in Houston. And the word was to denote that black people need to be woke in their interactions with the police.
I've heard that also.
Which seemed like a good idea. It's what they call in the military, situational awareness.
Absolutely.
And then what happened was overeducated coastal white people got a hold to the word, and if they do everything else, they completely fucked it up and pissed everybody in the country off.
Now you're speaking my language.
And if we just could get the humanities faculty at Amherst to shut the fuck up, we'd be a lot better off.
You know, it's so funny. My friends who are around my age, 40, they're always bitching about their kids, you know, who are in their 20s, because they're just like out of control, super woke, and they drive them crazy. And it's like, yes, old thinking, Mom, you don't get it. And I said to them, just tell them, get what? Like abolish the police? No, you got me. I don't get that. You know, things like that. Legalizing shoplifting. No, I don't get it. You know, bringing back communism. I don't get it. You know, and so it's not that I'm old. It's that your ideas are stupid.
So the day that they had the Lauren Boebert incident in Denver, Politico ran a story that she'd become a Washington insider. She was like trying to work as a assistant. And Washington loves the story that they're civilizing effect.
Man, when they send a redneck to Washington, they do not fuck around.
Don't you love when they go and interview these people at a Trump rally? I shouldn't. It's not a way that a human being should feel.
Right.
But there's so. It's amusing. Of course, they have somebody with, hey, Trump, grab my pussy, and you look at it, and ain't nobody in the world want to get within a mile of your pussy. Don't worry. Nobody's going to grab that pussy. If they get through the fat wrinkle to get to it, they wouldn't even know.
I feel like the people who go to the rallies are the worst. Yeah. These are the people who, when you said before, some of them are deplorable. Yes, some of them are. I feel like those are the types who, if you're actually getting your ass out to go to a Trump rally, I mean, what, you don't have the grades to get into the tractor pull?
I love these, when I see it like somebody goes and they interview people.
Yeah.
I gotta admit, it gives me, I shouldn't do it, it's not, I do it, you should never do it in my business. I actually feel superior to these people. Jeez, I'm pretty fucking stupid, but this is like.
Right. Whereas the obnoxious left feels superior to you.
But I laugh at the obnoxious right. I find them humorous.
Oh, I find them both humorous.
Obnoxious left, they believe that they actually want Trump to win re-election. Because they've always believed, the German communists would march in the streets of Berlin and would say, the worse the better. After Hitler, us. And the left, if you read these really left-wing things, they believe that there are sleeper cells all around the country, and once they're exposed to the real thing, to, real distribution and state ownership, they're going to rise up, and working people are going to seize the proletariat. My favorite thing in all of politics is the dictatorship of the proletariat.
This is what?
Is that communists that left wing are back in the 19th century called it the dictatorship of the proletariat. And what they would say to you and I, free speech, oppressor cannot have free speech.
Right.
The oppressed. Now, who is the arbiter of the oppressor or the oppressed? I have no fucking idea who makes that determination.
It's a very scary time as far as like people who, on both sides, think that the other side is such an existential threat that anything is justified for winning. I mean, this is where the Republicans already are. To the Democrats' great credit, they are not there yet at all. The Republicans are the only ones who think these people are so nuts, and sometimes they are nuts, we've been talking about it, they're so nuts that we can't let them take over because, you know, it'll just be all pregnant men all the time, that kind of thing. So they're like, if it takes a right-wing coup and nullifying elections, okay, that's where they are as a party. That's why they won't. Why Christie's the only one who's going against Trump, and he's not going to win doing that. You're right. You cannot buck that idea that the Democrats are a bigger threat. That's the philosophical underpinning of all of it. The Democrats are a bigger threat, or liberal thinkers, our whole side, okay, is a bigger threat than Russia, than anything, than our own democracy. Like, you can fuck with elections to keep them out of power because they're nuts. And even if we are nuts, you can't do it that way.
Right.
We got to stick.
Again, I'll come back. It's 10% of the Democratic Party as opposed to 65% of the Republican Party. Do you think Joe Biden, if you tried to explain to Joe Biden what woke is, do you think you could even explain it to him?
No, he's like...
What are you saying, pal? Let me get this straight now.
He's like...
Sir,
he's like the dad who, you know, he doesn't really understand what the kids are into, but he doesn't want to fight about it either. So when the wife is like, honey, the kids want to cut their dicks off and tear down the statue of Lincoln, he's like, whatever, I'm watching the game.
You think Chuck Schumer is woke? It's counting votes. Be careful, we don't want to get primaried.
Right.
You know? Okay. But I mean, most of these guys, they don't even understand it. They don't even understand what they're talking about.
Right. Well, we did a thing once on the fact that the job in America that you can have that gives you the best prestige and the greatest perks while having zero qualifications is Congress. Like almost anything else, you need some sort of qualifications. But you can be, as Marjorie Taylor Greene was, stacking the weights at CrossFit. So you can get elected from prison.
Yeah, president can be
no
in prison.
qualifications, and yet if you get it, you have a corner office. You have the good table at the restaurant. You have people asking your opinion like you know something. You go on talk shows. People blow you. Lobbyists blow you.
So, okay. So how would you, but if you changed it, if you did a constitutional convention, all right, and I'd say, fuck it, the people know it and they vote for them. What do you want me to do?
No. Well, as Churchill said, it's the worst system except for all the others. Right. I mean, I'm not saying we get rid of elected government, but as long as you bring up my constitutional convention, like, we do need to straighten out I mean, just because the system barely held last time, and barely.
We're in one shit.
What?
We're still in jeopardy.
So much jeopardy. Yeah.
And you talk about the nature. 18% of the people in the United States elect 52 senators.
Yes.
That's not going to change.
No.
That's not going to change.
That's what I was saying about you'd never get to enough people to just sensibly give up their whatever side they're on and do the right thing for the country. And I don't know what that forebodes for our future if you can't really get people to do, you know. And yet, you know what's amazing about this country? The economy never stops.
They don't stop.
Never fucking stops. That's the one thing Americans are good at, boy. We fucking work and love fucking money. and spending money and making money and money.
So I flew out here. I went to on Delta, and if you have a American Express card or a day ticket, you can get into the club. I could not find a seat in there. And these motherfuckers were like, I went to the sundry shop to get a bottle of water to take on a plane. They were spending $90, $100. I'm like, put that fucking credit card back. You don't buy this shit here. It costs you $50. You can go. They spend, you cannot stop people from spending money.
I always think the same thing when I'm out. Like, where does everyone get all this money?
I don't think they have it. I think that the pandemic so traumatized people, like, fuck it. I ain't gonna wait around and be
traumatized.
stuck.
They loved it. They sat home, most of them, and got money sent to them. It was fantastic. They stopped going to work. By the way, kids now, another one of the great repercussions of their brilliant pandemic policy. Kids now, did you see this in the paper? Don't go to school anymore. Oh, not at nearly the rates they did. And truancy levels, just people who go, yeah, I don't feel like going today. That's just like through the roof.
So
I mean, how can a country continue? Already, kids come out of high school, they do not know anything. I mean, anything. Like, for a lot of kids in this country who are 18 who can vote, watching this would be like we were speaking in Chinese. We mentioned people they never fucking heard of or don't care about and never will. We mentioned things that were going on, they have no idea. I don't know how a country can really move forward successfully.
So, the provost at Tulane told me this. There was if you remember, it was up at NYU in pre-med, there was a chemistry teacher. And we had a test, and like 3/4 of the pre-med students at NYU flunked it. So they got rid of the teacher.
Yeah.
You know the interesting thing about that is, that guy had been there for 25 years and had given the same test for 25 years.
Now, I asked Bernie Sanders when he was on I think it was the overtime thing, what's the difference between equity and equality? And I remember he had a hard time answering. It was like, I was surprised he hadn't like thought about that.
But I've become, honestly, I've become more liberal. As most people say that as you age, you become more conservative. I actually think I've become more liberal.
On what issue are you more?
I'll give you one. Daycare. I never thought about daycare.
Really?
Well, I didn't have kids, and I was in my 50s, and I was working for
but
the
I mean, as a
president.
political issue, it must have been an issue with Clinton.
It was somewhat, but
Daycare? I thought that's
huge issue. So I have a grandchild, and my daughter is in graduate school at LSU, and she called me, she never asked me, she says, Dad, we got to get him in LSU daycare. And if you think about it, all these universities have to have daycare, and they have childhood development teachers and students.
Right.
And, okay, so
Sure.
the package, and it costs very little. If we were talking about this on camera, and the cameraman told me that he pays more for daycare than his mortgage. Every other country has free daycare. All of these people are complaining we can't get enough employees. Well, do it. Elizabeth Warren had federal daycare. It's the best idea. We ought to have that. That's not the federal government getting it. You can take your kid, they can get nutrition, they can interact with other kids, they can do that. Mom can work and come back and pick you up after work. You just ask people what daycare costs for ordinary people, and if you can get it, it's stunning. And that is a block. If you want to have equality for women, you would start with free or very inexpensive, high-quality daycare.
Yeah, I think you're right.
I've just become like fanatically liberal on that.
I don't think, see, to me, that is the definition of not fanatically liberal, that's the definition of classically liberal. That's when I say to people, I'm mostly an old school liberal. That's the kind of stuff I'm in. It's practical. It's not just catching you at something. It's actually trying to fix something. Now, it all depends on how you do it. I mean, I also am very skeptical of how we fucking spend money because the amount we waste is astronomical. I was just shocked at how much of COVID money was just flat out stolen or given away to fucking rich people. That kind of stuff pisses me off, and it doesn't, make me lose my liberal card if I go, there's a certain amount of money that if you waste, I'm gonna notice. I get it, you can't transfer money except with a leaky bucket. I get it. I'm not asking for a completely unleaky bucket, but what you got there is a handle, because it's all going out. But daycare, something like daycare, I get that one. That's like a classic program that, because it probably would fix like so many other things down the road.
Would there be shady operators getting into it with some fucking private equity people decide that, yes. It's like people say, well, in Ukraine there's corruption and money we give. The oldest profession in the world is prostitution. The second oldest is war. And the third oldest, followed by about 3 seconds, is war profiteering.
Yeah.
All right. You know how much war profiteering there was in the Union during the Civil War?
Iraq.
Iraq?
Yeah.
World War II. I mean.
Yeah, but World War II, that's the one they were pretty good on. They had a commission.
They did.
That like people were in line.
They were scared.
I mean, there was a.
Some people did well, but the Civil War did really good.
There was a year or two when American automobile made no cars because they were only making.
Just making it.
The only cars they made were big fucking cars.
But the car companies, it's great. They got paid for it. Okay.
Oh, of course.
Yeah, I don't. And they should.
Oh,
I don't have. People like that make really they pay for it.
But it is amazing, like the shittiest thing with everything is going. Like, you're right. People are just out there living their best life, spending a lot of money, and it just doesn't have the feel that we're at the end of the empire. And I'm sure there are people who look at us talking this way about, we're on the edge, and we kind of are. Certainly like the oldest president had a kind of optimistic view. Well,
I mean, first of all, it's constant. Okay, we ought to respect everybody. Everybody's entitled to opinion. You should be. You don't have to agree with people. I'd like to haul off and put somebody's fucking feet right in the mouth. Okay? I mean, are you looking at what's happening in the world and telling me this is some kind of you gotta do that?
My guy. Vivek.
He said it's a hoax.
Okay, you gotta learn his name. Vivek.
Yeah, I'm terrible.
At the Republican debate, they all purposely fuck up his name. Like, that's the way you do it. They like subtle, dog whistle. He's foreign because I can't even say. And the one who really showed me she wants it badly, Nikki Haley, fucked up his name.
She's out there.
I was like, hey, Susan, really? Come on. Come on.
You don't get to be governor of South Carolina, but being the number one.
But I mean, isn't that great that, like, even South Carolina, and I say even, I'm sure that's insulting to people in South Carolina, but it's pretty southern. A lot of Israel racism in the state.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So, like, as the governor of South.
I'll tell you a story about that. It's called the church. Here's the grant. Giant party built. Every day, it's called a high benefit society. And they don't ever have Democrats that they want to know if you speak to. You know, I said, well, you know, so I think all of those policies, it's like springtime. So I go there, these motherfuckers are like in tuxedos, and they line up. And so I'm sitting on the post, and the guy that ordered sample, Mark sample.
Yeah, I remember. The
And it was
Appalachian,
during the whole thing in
Appalachian Trail.
Argentina. Right. So I look under my chair, and it's just making smoke. And I said, well, what is this for? So we put it there so you could drink before. I said, well, I said, yeah. I'm 1,500 fucking people. I said, well, go to the bar and drink the whole thing. I woke up the bar, it's not a man I have. And so I went to sample, and I said, look, I got a tank. Okay, I just can't sit up here and like crack jokes for 10 minutes and act like this. He said, fine, huh?
Yeah.
And he wrote me a nice note out. So we're sitting there, and all of a sudden, everybody starts standing up, singing Dixie. And I'm like, fuck, what am I to do up here?
Really?
Like, and so, the moral coward that I am, I decided that I would stand up and I wouldn't sing. And when I tell you, it was Senator Holland was still alive. He was there. Joe Riley was Mayor Charleston, the Democrat Mayor Charleston.
Do they still sing Dixie today?
I don't know. I'd be interested.
See, that's what I mean. Like, I'm always just trying to, I just want the truth, you know? I just want the truth about what's going on. I think that little things like that can help you know, okay, we made this more lucrative product. They don't try and sing Dixie.
I would love to know, and maybe somebody will see this, do they still sing Dixie at Abundance?
Yeah. And if they do, that's probably something. And if they didn't, but you know, as generations age out, you know, I mean, if the people our age who are the problem, I'm sure most of them, you know, people of a certain age, like that, who just look at a difference, and their life is perhaps not perfect, like when they kind of take it out, like having that racist brain. But these people, you know, that's not, it's not even, like, it's not even the people, they're retired. I mean, when I think of that kind of guy, and there's a guy that shot somebody in the hand before.
Oh yeah, that happened more than in Kansas City.
Yeah.
Yeah, it happened. That's happened more than once. And, you know, I think that the consequential event, maybe of my lifetime, and I'm serious, I've thought about this a long time, was Bush v. Gore. Do you understand if they would not stop that vote count, we would have an entirely different country? Entirely different. Okay? I'm sorry. And if you, now, people forget, from 1994 to 2004, you could not buy a software. You could not. It was against the law. How many people, about here, Senator Murphy, Chris Murphy on my podcast, there's another guy. Jesus Christ, this guy was the Democratic nominee for president, would get 55%.
Chris Murphy.
Yes. You're from Connecticut. From Connecticut. That's okay. You're from Connecticut. He's very big on gun issues. I think Chris is Irish, but I don't know. But I think Chris will.
Chris is Irish.
Yeah. Christopher is the kind of ultimate Christian.
So, how old is he?
Yes. He looks like he's
John.
But I'm just saying,
Chris Murphy.
It's
Sold.
Anything. Take it. I'll take it. I'll take it right now.
I get Chris Murphy. I fucking love it. It's
Right.
something
He's like,
yeah.
the people come out of the woodwork.
Absolutely. I don't even know who the fucking guy is.
It's right.
He's done.
It's okay. If there are other people that would bring,
And you know what's great? And I told this to Chris Murphy once. Timing is everything. And you gotta go early. Like when Obama ran, they were like, oh, he's barely been a senator. And Obama was like, exactly. Now you don't have like a whole like lifetime of bullshit to like, you know, comb through trying to get me on something. You're right, I knew. And that's what works in America. I knew. You don't have much on my past. And I knew know anything about you, and let's keep it that way.
I'm sitting there interviewing some guy, saying, people, get out there and fucking run. What's, you know,
Well, he's a white man.
from Connecticut, so we were going to say, well, we can't nominate somebody from Connecticut. We can't go out as a white. We can't
Straight.
nominate a male. We
Straight.
can't. I think so. I think if I had, but I'm not.
Yeah, I saw him.
Yeah, he looks. I don't know how you look
Well, like if he has a
but-
wife and kids.
Yeah, I think he does, but you know, I didn't get around to asking him. But
All right, well,
forget that.
as long as we
10
know
other
nothing-
Chris
as
Murphys
long
out
as we
there.
know nothing about it, can we make him gay? It would help so much. Yeah, really.
Well, maybe he's ambitious enough. I asked him. He can turn. I think it's a hard thing to pull off. To be like, yeah,
Fred, want to be president? Well, no,
but it's maybe he could be a. You know what? It is humor. It is exaggerated, and there is an element of. If he was gay,
there's a big. That's the bad thing about Democrats being so locked in identity politics. I've talked about this on certain episodes. Is that like the box checking? It's almost the way they, write certain scripts these days. Like the box checking comes first, and then we write the show or go for the candidate. I mean, you cannot imagine a Democratic ticket that was two white men. Now, maybe that's the way it should be. I'm not saying it shouldn't, but the fact that it's not debatable, or the fact that if they were two great white men, it just wouldn't, like, we know this ticket of Gore, they were like, they were state. Like, that could never happen. And the fact that it could never happen, that bothers me. I'm all for diversity.
I guess I'd say his power is his probably wouldn't be wise. And I mean, look, we're the first party to be nominated and elected a vice president nominated. And I think that makes me proud to be a Democrat. Honestly, fine.
Yeah, well, I'm all for this. Don't make me the diversity though. I'm all for it. I'm just saying I don't like things that are limiting like that. I don't know if we, like our governor, I think would be a very good candidate.
He's talented.
He's talented. Look, California's a little too low for me. Everybody is quite frankly. But
It's definitely Hill is too low for you. If you go to fucking San Bernardino or Riverside, they wouldn't know what you're talking about. You just playing in this.
okay, but I'm not going to move to Riverside.
I know.
So you can win the
You just
point.
gotta deal with it. You live in fucking paradise. Are you gonna be at 70 degrees and
It's no. You know what? If you lived in the state and you ever tried to cut down a tree in your backyard, or my solar took 3 years to hook up, this state is magic. Please, I live here. Even still, I think Gavin Newsom would be
I think it's like that.
I've been trying to get him to run for lieutenant governor. Sean Penn and I were at his house. I were not his house. I guess Sean's house for a fundraiser. Not that long ago, but I remember we said to him, run for president while you still look like a movie. And I don't think that's a bad thing in America. And he's got a pair of balls. He's shown that.
Kick the shit out of John Harris.
Yeah.
I mean, if he
He certainly has the credentials to win the primary. And then, hopefully, he's a good politician who can act to the center a little more actively. And I think he would win big.
But Newsom is a very good communicator. And I'm sorry, I wish we did a debate about it. He wouldn't even. I would love to take
Come on, this is America. Politics is he just is a leading man and things going on. California's kind of a big state. I know it's in the bag, but it is a Democrat. But I think this is a lot to thinking about the candidates. I'm sorry, I know it's wrong, but it is kind of like reality TV. The primary process, that was
Well, and then it broke the program too.
I know, but it's because it was people think it's just watching them, get their points with each other and try to score. It's a game. So, you want on your side like something that's like, has some show business appeal. I'm not saying some of the other candidates don't, but I'm going to go for, charisma over dull. All things are this sort of, and I think the Democrats are kind of I mean, is there a lot of like between what Gavin Newsom thinks about stuff and what Gretchen Whitmer does? No.
It's that, honestly, most of the stuff that identity rabbit wants, stuff about for the Republicans, but they
fight them like like say the ticket is Gavin Newsom, Gretchen Whitmer. Just be like, why is she the vice president? Why not? And that's a good point.
Because she went and got more delegates. Look at us.
Well, yeah, right. Leave it to the voters. Right? You don't even have to decide.
People know that he's a white male. They know that she's a female. Okay, I'm pretty glad to let you. You're not going to confuse her. Okay.
Right.
Yeah. Hey, how you doing? Good. Yeah, she's a female. You're something different.
What do you think is going to be the next 3 years now? Let's say the election is, like you just said before, this November. So we have a little more than a year. And the candidates will be decided by summer primary. So it'll be Trump on the field for sure, right? No?
How do you, first of all, the guy who's overweight,
if he's alive, he'll be alive.
That there's something, some jury comes back. I don't know. Certainly he would be the probable nominee. But
what do you think?
because but some chance he could not do that well in Iowa. And if he ever gets people like I don't think it's a big change. I don't think he's definitely the nominee.
No, he's Hitler, and I don't mean that in the wrong way. He's not the guy who wanted to kill all the children. He is the guy with a message over a certain kind of person. He feels cheated and wrong. Look, he's not going to lose his nomination if he wants to. Ali Frazier rematch badly.
So people say you should never compare about Hitler. No, we should. So we just went to this terrible thing in the world, and we're not going to talk about it. We're not going to act like it ever happened, that there wasn't this sort of, extreme.
And you should be able to compare someone to Hitler in a certain way. Like, no, Trump is not Hitler. Hitler was evil and what he wanted to do. Trump not.
So anybody that want to do that, go on the computer, try and Google it, and just watch the first 10 minutes and tell me that we shouldn't be talking about it. It's literally the airplane, the clouds, descending to the masses. All right?
Yeah.
And then Germany was a great country. We're going to bring back it's all nostalgia, but this is not the same country we live in. Yeah, and it's not going to be the same country 20 years from now. I mean, there's nothing I can do about it. We changed it, but that was the whole key. He was swooping down the thing, and I just found it. I always show it to my friends. There's not much news with people. It really isn't.
Well, there's certainly nothing new in human nature. That's what, I know we're all like completely modern era now where we're fluid and we're all trans and on the spectrum and nothing. But really, I think people are basically They can be yours.
So the foreign affairs, which is probably always couple of things. So they call me, and they ask me to Cicero's brother, goes to me. And my conclusion was, we haven't thought of a fucking blue things. He was talking about filing fake lawsuits against people, and I used to go negative early, and shit, this is like, yeah, well, oh my God, it's the Clinton 92 campaign, it's the economy stupid, it's the war, it's kind of shit the ass back in Cicero's brother. Do you agree?
Well, that's what's so frustrating about it, you know. People who want to like bring back communism and stuff. I think that might be what it was. Because like, you know what? I know we're old and I think that's stupid because we know stuff, but we've seen people try with communism and trust me. I know you don't want to read about it, maybe that's too complicated, and Che Guevara makes a great t-shirt. I don't want to upset you, but it was a giant disaster with communism thing. And so, like, let's just put that one off the table. If you, like, did try it, and it wasn't that fucking long ago. Because we were a lot of fun.
Sort of the most effective anti-communism were actually the ABA, like the oldest, because they thought, hey, this looks like not a bad idea.
Right.
And then they went and actually saw it and came back and said, it's a really bad idea.
Most of them, yeah.
Yes.
I mean, Stalin had a lot of fans on the left in the 1930s.
He did. You know, when they told Stalin about the night of the wrong knife, you know what he said? What a guy.
How do we know that?
I mean, I think that's pretty accurate.
It just doesn't sound like the Stalin.
Well, I know, he said it was.
What a guy.
I mean, he wasn't that kind of dude. That's one of the decades. You know, they gave everything to the, was about Stalin. There's a lot of history. Stalin was dominant.
Stalin, well, first of all, Stalin killed somebody.
Oh.
And does not get the credit.
Right. Hitler, like, needed a reason to kill him. Stop.
A terrible
reason.
A terrible reason.
Yeah, no.
But a reason, you're right.
No man, no problem.
That was Stalin.
Yeah.
You know who was stopping that?
We couldn't,
No person, no problem.
He was like,
you can't argue with it.
I can't. You know, I can't get enough of Stalin. God damn, man, this guy.
Well, again, people know that there were
What about Chinese?
yes.
What?
Yes.
What about the Japanese in World War II?
So brutal. Well, especially before World War II.
What was their view in 1931?
You what?
You asked an American during World War II started, they'll say December 7th, 1941. Good shit.
Again, I promise you, the vast majority of the kids couldn't tell you that thousands of years old, older, centuries within. Some of them, you know, there's still other people being educated, but when you look at like there's such a different reading, it's like below like 30%.
Remember that you did on Real Time with your brother?
I showed a video. I know what you're talking about.
You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, it was like a jaywalking thing where they ask people on the street, you know, questions, and I mean these are real. You can tell that they're real.
Right.
But the level of ignorance is like way beyond what I saw. The first one was who was the first person to land on this sun?
Right.
And the answer, of course, was Lance Armstrong.
They didn't look. The problem is they didn't look like people. Okay?
They look like regular people. That's what's scary.
Right. It's not like, every time a tornado hits, it's a trailer
No.
park and they got
James, somewhere along the way, the educational system in this country really fell apart for all kinds of reasons in all kinds of districts. And I think the Democrats would have to pour a little bit of that. They are the part of it. But it's a Democratic convention. It's all teachers. My sister's a teacher. I love the teachers. We defended them. But our schools are turning out idiots.
But it's not the Republican. I never met a bookmark in my life.
Bully for you.
I'm not.
Quit bragging.
Well, I know, but you have these people, these schools have become such a cultural.
Yeah, battle. This is nuance, but we need to show you. Sometimes as grandfather in the culture war, that seems.
But you're right, Joe. I mean, it's way too. I have a lot of problems saying about to do with Greenwell, but I'm just coming back to the same thing. It's not the majority of our political party.
I know. But just because they're not the majority doesn't mean they don't have control with it. What am I trying to say? They don't have the riding crowd. They don't have the thing that makes the horse go. Yeah. So 11% can be, unfortunately, dominant.
They're strategically located. Okay, because they're in academia, in the media.
Academia, media, yeah.
Entertainment. This place is overlooked.
And they're mean girls. They know how to bully people. They hate bullying, but that's what they do. So it doesn't really matter the 90% or whatever they are.
What they do, if you're at some point, at some overpriced college, they'll get rid of your ass. They're not going to fuck with you. They actually kick the party vulnerable people, which is the opposite of what a liberal should like be willing to stand up to power, but they're not. Boy, let me tell you, if you're the civics teacher at Park in Westlake,
right?
You say, you need a job, you got a family, they'll pump your ass right out of town.
I mean, this is like a frustrating thing to me that I've read so many stories about Saturdays going on in college. And I realize that, the Democrats, the liberals, they don't see this because the media does not give stories that would upset them. They don't want to think that the problem is academia. It is. And there's this, every week there's a story about some professor quit or was fired for. These are liberal colleges with liberal professors making war on other liberals because they're not quite liberal enough. And these statements, they're anti-racist statements. Did you read this during the time like the DEI statement? And if you just say, I think all people should be treated equally, you're considered the right wing. Now that's a migration of thought that is not effective.
It's not helpful. Right now, the census is trying to dismantle the personal higher education part. The University of Florida, most people don't realize.
Come on, nobody ever got educated in Florida.
The University of Florida
Ever.
It's just top-ranked. It's a top-ranked public university.
It's a party state.
It's not. That's something. There are more people that go to the University of South Florida than go to Ohio State. Woo! I'm just saying.
Okay.
You're right. We do.
Right.
We go after humanity. They go after the whole fucking system.
It's hard. That's what I meant to say. Florida.
But Sanders is going after a real treasure. How is Florida? It's good. They're like trying to dismantle the whole fucking thing.
Yeah, he turned out to be a putt. And I tell you, I hadn't seen him before I saw the debate. And wow, was I underwhelmed. I thought just like following him I was shocked. I thought he was such a bad You don't even know why there's Scott Walker. Remember Scott Walker?
Scott Walker
He
is
was
actually a more personable guy.
well, that's saying a lot about what a represent is.
I've actually had a couple of social accounts with Scott Walker.
Like the next
It's like he's a very much of a political guy. He was talking to Scott Walker just about politics. I remember he was done that. I think it was Joe Russia. How would I do it? I mean, DeSantis.
You're saying it was a human.
Yeah, I think Scott Walker is a total political animal, but that's when you can see how he was successful.
Whereas DeSantis is a common man.
Well, DeSantis, the person that ever did woman named Susie Wild, is actually Pat Summerall's daughter, and she was DeSantis' college. Public office. She made him in the congressional race for any government. If Mrs. DeSantis was not for office. All these stories are coming out. So she went to Mar-a-Lago. The word it was Trump. All these stories are here about him putting in his fingers and all the use of private airplanes. That's all people watch. In politics, everybody thinks the most important thing is the friends you make. Let me give you a clue. Don't make any enemies that you don't have. Some people are by nature. My guy wants to syndicate, your guy wants to syndicate. We're enemies. So that's it. That's an enemy of yourself. Make very few enemies of yourself. And they knocked that woman off. She's sitting there to the freaking doll every night. And they showed me pictures with Trump. And all of these, every reporter I know, Steve died. She's got every report. This is the way that American politics works among political people. And you just see the knives of here. And what about these folks? Democrats, they go after each other. They don't hold back. It's not, they don't take it simple. I agree with you. My opponent made a good point. Identify. No. Oh,
piece of shit.
Yeah. I mean, they slam bodies every
I can see it when you're getting to that. And you know what? You haven't lost one step as far as like the exact same guy, even though the whole America guys over yeah, you know, you could. I feel like you could do it tomorrow. You could do it better. It is a shame that we're such an ageist country that we really don't look for like, you know, like AOC people. Yeah, maybe he knows something.
If you tell me if I could like do something to warm that in a campaign headquarters, like just running with the high that working in campaign, and I did president the way before. But you know, I worked in 22 different countries, and I used to love. I'd go to Israel. I could pick up airport here to go to work. I used to do Argentina because I was turn and burn. I would fly out one night, work all day, and fly back the next night to do it on the airport. But I love the smell, and I like I actually like politics. There was a group of people who told me that we got to spend 2 hours with a bunch of bankers, a bunch of baseball players, a bunch of welders, a bunch of politicians. I actually like work. By and large, I actually like politicians.
People like us, we like politics. You know, we're a little bit like out of favor in culture because people used to more broadly, I think, follow politics closely now. Yeah, they do. They argue about it a lot, but you know, there's a million other distractions. But I like that generation of people that you just like it. Just there's nothing quite as interesting as people vying for the most, you know, powerful job in the world. It's like tribe watching the really tight for who's going to be the leader of the tribe in our version. And I don't know why any frustrates me to extremely, you know, people who are really smart, they don't follow politics. They think it's kind of what makes you institutional. Yeah.
Really?
You know, but it would be less impure if you would follow it. You know, that's what I want to say. But if you would follow it, then you would be a good voter next time.
I've never, the first time I encountered Christian ethics was administration before. And ran into like, real, understand, we're talking about real living, real restaurants. They like the idea to make some good. These stupid fucking people. All right? I'm serious. If they don't like politics, they just I really can't see much fun in.
Well, you know, this is me too. This is like especially holidays. Not that I love every day. I never really kind of, the whole point of this project is to get away from politics. But, you know, I miss it. So, like, because I have the opportunity to have girls and one to be able to talk about politics. I should do something different.
Well, it's not. Your show, so they tell you what the fuck you're talking about.
I'm just saying, to have somebody who is a fellow political who wants to just talk to us about politics. Yeah.
I love talking about politics.
I know, you know, I could do it all night, but I've had you here for 6 fucking hours. That's why I like it.
Thank you. That guy's football.
Oh, me too.
And I just like politics for the most part. Yeah.